It was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. The lights were perfect, the music was soft, and the guests were dressed in their finest. A millionaire stood proudly at the center of a grand wedding hall, celebrating a new chapter with the woman he had chosen to spend the rest of his life with. Everything had been planned down to the tiniest detail, or so he thought. But amid the laughter, clinking glasses, and golden chandeliers, something caught his eye that instantly wiped the smile off his face. There she was, his 5-year-old daughter, in a little white dress now smudged with dust, carefully wiping down tables while guests walked right past her. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't dancing. She wasn't even noticed. Her tiny hands moved nervously as she tried to clean up plates and napkins left behind, like she didn't belong there. For a moment, he froze. The music faded into the background. All he could see was his little girl, working quietly while everyone else celebrated. How did it come to this? A man with more money than he could ever spend, surrounded by luxury, yet his own daughter was cleaning tables at his wedding. Was it just a child's innocent way of helping out, or something deeper that he had failed to see? In that moment, questions began to flood his mind. Had he been too focused on building his empire, too distracted by appearances, to notice what was happening right in front of him? The guests continued to laugh and dance, unaware of the shift in his expression. But something inside him had changed. His daughter wasn't just a side character in his story, she was the part he might have forgotten to write in. And just when he decided to walk toward her, something happened that he never expected. Something that would change the meaning of this wedding forever. He stepped off the stage slowly, almost forgetting the hundreds of eyes still watching him. But his focus was locked on her. The little girl looked up just then, meeting his gaze for a brief second. Her expression didn't change. No smile, no excitement, just a tired look far beyond her years. That glance hit him harder than any speech or toast that day. As he moved closer, memories began flashing through his mind. She was only 5, but it felt like she had grown up without him noticing. Since the divorce 2 years ago, he had promised himself he'd always be there for her. But life had a way of pulling him into other directions. Board meetings, late-night flights, endless phone calls. He had worked hard to give her everything she could ever want. Toys, a huge bedroom, the best school money could buy. But now, seeing her quietly cleaning up after strangers in a place that should have made her feel like a princess, he realized something was off. He knelt beside her gently and asked, "Why are you doing this, sweetheart?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she looked over at the bride, his new wife, who was laughing with her friends at the far end of the room. The little girl then turned back and shrugged, her tiny voice barely audible. "No one told me what to do, so I just wanted to help." Those words echoed in his head. Something about them felt too careful, too trained. Kids that age didn't usually feel the need to help, unless they had been made to believe they were in the way. He scanned the room again. None of the staff or guests seemed to be paying attention to her. It was like she didn't exist in the celebration, like she was just a shadow on the side of his new life. But what really shook him was what he saw next. Her tiny hands had small red marks on them. Not fresh, but not old either. He wanted to ask more, to understand, but before he could speak again, someone behind him called his name. And when he turned back, she was gone. He spun around, searching through the crowd, but she had vanished. His heart pounded as he moved past the tables, ignoring the congratulations and confused glances. "Have you seen my daughter?" he asked one of the waiters, but the man just shook his head. The bride, still surrounded by friends, didn't seem to notice he was gone. Or maybe she didn't care. He stepped out into the hallway, calling his daughter's name, voice tight with worry. No response, just the echo of music spilling out from the ballroom. As he checked the side corridors, memories of their last few months together began creeping in. How she had grown quieter. How she'd started hesitating before asking him anything. He'd chalked it up to changes. The new house, the wedding planning, the blended family. But now it didn't feel like growing pains. It felt like neglect. As he reached the service area near the back of the venue, he heard faint sniffles. Tucked behind a catering cart, barely visible, was his daughter, knees pulled up, trying not to cry. Relief rushed over him, but it was quickly replaced by something colder, guilt. She didn't flinch when he sat beside her, but she didn't look at him either. He asked again gently, "Why were you cleaning tables?" She hesitated, then finally said, "She said I couldn't sit with the guests, that I had to be helpful, or go wait in the kitchen." She didn't say who she was, but he didn't have to guess. His new wife had insisted on a simple role for the child during the wedding, saying it was too much for a little girl to be in the spotlight. He hadn't questioned it. He trusted her. Now he realized he had handed over more than just wedding details. He'd handed over his daughter's comfort, maybe even her safety. And then the thought hit him like a punch. If this happened today, in front of so many people, what had been happening behind closed doors? Before he could ask another question, his phone buzzed. A message from his wife. Asterisk, where are you? Don't ruin this night. Asterisk, he stared at the message on his phone, fingers tightening around it. Asterisk, don't ruin this night, asterisk. The words felt cold, dismissive, like the celebration mattered more than anything else. More than his daughter, more than the truth. He looked at the little girl beside him, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her dress, eyes red but quiet now. She didn't ask what he was thinking. She just waited, like she was used to doing that. Everything he had built, the wealth, the image, the powerful network of people now partying in that ballroom, it suddenly felt empty. What kind of man throws a grand wedding while his child hides behind food carts? How had he let things get this far without seeing it? He helped her to her feet, brushing crumbs from her skirt, his heart heavy with a mix of anger and shame. She looked up at him and whispered, "Can we go home?" Her voice cracked on the last word. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't even a plea. It was quiet, tired hope, and it broke him. But going home wasn't that simple. Not now. Not after what she said. He needed answers, real ones, and not just from her. He guided her gently toward a nearby staff lounge where she could sit safely, then turned back toward the wedding hall. The music was louder now, laughter spilling out like nothing had happened. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The bride spotted him almost instantly, her smile flickering when she saw he was alone. She made her way to him quickly, still holding her champagne. "Where have you been?" she asked, keeping her voice low but firm. "We have speeches to get to." He didn't answer right away. He looked at her carefully, like seeing her for the first time, not as the woman he loved, but as someone who might be hiding something. "We need to talk," he said. Her smile faded. "About what?" He stepped closer, his voice steady. "About what you told my daughter, and why she was cleaning tables instead of being part of this family." The color drained from her face, and in that instant, everything changed. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence between them stretched too long, too heavy for a night meant to be full of joy. He watched her closely, waiting for something, an apology, an excuse, anything. Instead, she glanced over his shoulder, scanning the room like she was trying to find a way out. That's when he knew. She wasn't surprised that he found out. She was afraid of what he might say next. "Did you tell her to clean?" he asked again, lower now, but firmer. "Did you tell a 5-year-old to stay out of sight on my wedding day?" Her eyes started, jaw tightening. "I told her to stay where the staff could watch her. I didn't want her getting lost in the crowd." She wasn't being watched, he snapped. She was wiping plates like a busser. The tension between them turned the air thick, but just as she was about to respond, someone from the corner of the room stepped closer, her younger sister, who had been helping organize the wedding. She looked nervous, almost guilty. "She didn't just ask your daughter to stay out of the way," she said carefully. She told the staff not to let her sit with the guests, said it was your arrangement." His heart dropped. "What?" The bride turned sharply, eyes wide. "Why would you say that?" The sister didn't back down, because it wasn't right. "I watched her ask one of the servers to keep the girl busy. said she was too distracting. I thought you knew. The room felt like it shifted. His mind raced. Not only had his daughter been pushed aside, but had been intentional and hidden. And the worst part, he'd been too distracted to even notice. He looked around the room, suddenly aware of the eyes watching them now. Whispers starting, faces turning. But before he could speak, someone from the staff walked up to him quietly. "Sir, I think you should see this." He held out a small phone. "Your daughter left this on the couch in the lounge. There's a video open on the screen." And what was playing made his blood run cold. He took the phone from the staff member, heart pounding in his chest. The screen was already playing a video. His daughter must have accidentally pressed record while it sat beside her in the lounge. At first, it showed just her tiny feet swinging from the edge of the couch. But then, voices entered the frame. Familiar ones. His bride's voice came through, cold and sharp. "Just stay in here and be quiet, okay? You already had your part at the ceremony. No one wants to see a messy little girl running around in pictures." Then, a second voice, her friends, joined in with a laugh. "She's not used to rules. You're doing her a favor, tough love and all." "Exactly," the bride replied. "She needs to learn her place. This day isn't about her." He stopped the video. That was enough. He stood frozen for a few seconds before lifting his head. His bride had already seen his expression shift. She stepped forward, her voice shaky now. "I didn't mean it like that." He raised his hand to cut her off. "You lied to me. You pushed my daughter aside on my wedding day. You made her feel unwanted, and now I have it recorded." Around them, guests had started to gather. The music had faded out. Whispers spread like wildfire. The perfect celebration had crumbled, and the truth stood in the center like a spotlight. He turned to the staff member. "Please take my daughter to the car. I'll be there soon." His bride tried again. "Please, let's talk in private. Don't make a scene." But the scene had already been made, and then came the final blow. Her sister, still watching quietly, added, "You should also know, this wasn't the first time. She's been like this every time the girls stayed at your house. I just didn't know how to tell you." The weight of those words settled in his chest. He looked around at the beautiful hall, the flowers, the lights, the guests now avoiding his eyes. He took a slow breath. And then, without another word, he turned around and walked out. He stepped out into the cool night air, the sound of his shoes echoing against the stone walkway. The car was already waiting, his daughter inside, curled up in the back seat with her stuffed animal clutched tightly in her arms. When she saw him, her eyes lit up, not with excitement, but with relief. He slid into the seat beside her and pulled her close, resting his hand gently on her back. The ride home was quiet. No music, no calls, just the hum of the engine and the weight of everything that had just happened. He stared out the window, the reality settling in. The wedding, the people, the promises, it was all over. But what mattered most had been sitting next to him all along. Not the celebration, not the speeches, his daughter. The one person who didn't care about money, or appearances, or power. She just wanted to be seen, to be loved, to belong. The next morning, he made a call to his lawyer. The marriage would be annulled. No drawn-out arguments, no second chances. He also arranged for a full-time therapist, not just for his daughter, but for himself. He wanted to understand how he'd missed the signs, how he'd been so focused on building a perfect life that he forgot to live one. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, routines returned. School drop-offs, pancake breakfasts, bedtime stories. No more staff watching her. No more hushed rules. Just the two of them, learning each other again. One night, as they sat on the floor painting together, his daughter looked up and said, "This house feels warm now." He smiled, the words sinking deep. Not because of the lights or the walls, but because for the first time she felt safe. Looking back, he realized the wedding hadn't been the beginning of a new life. It had been the moment everything changed. The day a millionaire almost lost what mattered most, and found it just in time. Sometimes, the most expensive lessons don't cost money. They cost attention, and love, and listening when it matters most.